We live in a time of great uncertainty and change. Some would even say that we're living at the hinge of history. It's forcing many of us to move and adapt to a changing landscape that, well, it's moving very quickly. The world as we knew it growing up, it's all but gone. And with an uncertain future that we now face, how do we navigate what's coming next? This week on the channel, we focused on navigation, using a map and compass together to get to a destination from an initial starting point. Clearly, a compass, it gets you to a destination when combined with a map with the proper knowledge of understanding how to go from point A to point B. The arrow on the compass, it points north, and it's a point of reference for everything else. When you can't specifically see the destination you're trying to go to, you can always reference off that point of north and base your destination or rather your travels hitting different waypoints. And when we bring up the subject of prepping and how does it fit into the discussion of navigating what's coming next, again, when I do these videos on Sunday, I always try to take what we learned during the week and kind of at a high level, more of a thought piece of, learning and implementing what we've hopefully picked up, the skills that I've taught, and introducing those into our lives in more meaningful ways. For me personally, and obviously why I do this channel, is I think that we're going to see challenging times in the coming years. We're obviously already entering in the last few years of times of upheaval, societal changes, financial, uncertainty. And I'm not the only one that really feels this way. There's a lot of people that typically had things not happen the way they played out last year. I don't think they would be discussing the fall civilizations, the challenges that this, Western world that we live in is facing. And, we're starting to see the upheaval. We're starting to see the cracks. The evidence is becoming more and more clear that there are underlying foundational problems that are beginning to widen and become more and more profound. I'll put it that way. The challenge is when you bring up the discussion in the prepping community of what is a challenge, what are the things that we face on the horizon, you're going to get a lot of different answers. What I've learned over the years is prepping, it's a pretty big tent. We all come with our different views, what we expect to happen next, what we're concerned about. Some people may say, hey, I'm concerned that Yellowstone's going to erupt. Some people may be concerned that we're about to go into, some huge societal upheaval and everything in between. And again, my views for what I prep for may be different from what your views are. But as I've said many times in the past, I think at one point on a given timeline, our views and our concerns will probably converge in ways that maybe we don't, again, agree on or the way we perceive things to be happening. But nonetheless, these events will probably play out over time. And obviously, we could sit by idly hoping for someone to come along and solve the problems for us that, hey, if there's challenges that we're going to face over the next several years, this decade that we're in, surely there's going to be a politician that will take care of this for us. Surely someone is in control, and that's sometimes an easy thing to tell ourselves because it feels good to know that someone is in charge. And for me, I would liken prepping to a map and a compass. In regards to a map, we have to determine where we are and where we want to get to. What's the final destination? Where is it that you're trying to go? Because I think if you don't define that up front, prepping can be a bit of a tedious, time-consuming, frustrating process if you don't have a clear destination. Now, in regards to a compass, we need the ability to have a clear direction laid out for us that we can follow. We need to know what is north, what is the direction of travel, even when there's uncertainty swirling around us. I'm working on material at the moment, and for years as a YouTube channel, I've mentioned this in a few past videos, I've wanted to roll out courses that teach people how to prep in an incremental, realistic timeline. And over the next several months, I'm going to be dedicating a lot of time on building out this course that, again, I'll release and help the community, again, navigate these times that we're going to go through in real practical ways. At least I hope that's I hope that's what we accomplish. But like traveling with a map and a compass, no path to the destination is really straight. We have to be able to adjust as we go. Look, when you sit down with a map, you can say, okay, here I am right here, and here is on the other side of the map where I want to be. And there may be mountainous terrain in between, there may be obstacles, there may be rivers, streams, you name it. it's not always a straight line to get from point A to point B. And that's why it's so important to set waypoints where you can say, okay, I know on this map I'm here and I can get to this point. And when I get there, then I'll readjust and go to the next waypoint. And the beauty of doing this is that it allows us to stay focused on these achievable waypoints that we can actually get to. And again, when we hit that one, we can then reevaluate and say, okay, I'm on the path, I'm getting there, I've just got to reevaluate and make a slight change to my compass. And with the distractions that we have around us, all we have to do is focus on that one point to keep us on course. Things, and I believe over the next few years, things will probably continue to play out much in the same way that we've seen over the last year, because so many things have changed. And again, using the supply chain as an example, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown of what's coming next as these issues that, again, I've done a video on this recently. I'll post a link in the cards above. These complex issues that are probably not going to resolve themselves anytime soon. But it's easy to get focused on, or rather get distracted by these things that can bump us on the left and the right. But when you set that waypoint and you set that objective, you can continue to move forward even when you have the distractions. And what's an achievable waypoint on the main path I'm taking to my final destination? For me, I always, and I share this a lot on the channel, I'm always trying to find new ways to improve my water storage, my food storage, to continue to learn gardening. Again, my wife has done a phenomenal job with that. We've raised chickens, we've done a lot of things. Even in a small urban suburban environment, it's still working for us. Now, I realize that, what we're doing won't provide the ultimate source of sustenance in an emergency, a prolonged emergency situation, but we're developing skills in the context of getting to our final destination. These skills that we pick up along the way are going to be critical. And a big waypoint for me personally at this moment is the desire to pick up land. That's one of the things I'm working on. I've shared this many times on the channel over the last year, and you may be saying, City Prepping, Chris, you've been talking about this for a long time. When are you going to actually pull the trigger and get land? And again, that's where it's been a bit challenging for me. I'm seeing a lot of changes in our real estate market where I live, and the unknown of, is this all going to crash in the next 6 months? I'm really on the fence. I'm having a hard time. But on the flip side, I look at real estate just continues to climb. We're seeing inflation hit that market really, in particular. And again, it's easy to lay out plans and to expect it to go smoothly. And I'm saying this because I realize that on my journey, my destination to get where I want to be, these different waypoints, things won't always go the way I want. I think it was, a lot of people have been attributed to this saying, but Dwight Eisenhower is probably one of the more popular ones, that he says, no plan survives first contact. And I always love that because I realize that I have a plan, I have a goal, I've got a destination, but things will inevitably come up and I have to keep readjusting and evaluating. And what are some realistic final destinations? For preppers, again, like I mentioned a moment ago, prepping's a big tent. Everybody's going to have a different view on what the realistic final destination, what it is you're preparing for. My approach and kind of my motto with prepping is just be able to make it through whatever disasters you may face. And those can be simple things. They can be job loss, sickness in the family, a natural disaster, things that in our lifetime obviously are going to happen. These things happen. Just unfortunately had a family member pass away a few weeks ago. And it's just, as sad as it is, it's just part of life. And these are things you have to prepare for. These things happen. Obviously, there's more advanced potentials that many in this community are concerned about, whether that's civil unrest, financial collapse. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, those two ends of the extreme within the context of prepping are both valid. Things, either one of those scenarios can play out, and everything in between. And I don't say, hey, I'm trying to prep for everything, but I try to prep for what is realistic and what is probable. I don't know exactly what's going to come next, but all that to say, I continue to set waypoints, things and points that I want to make on my journey to become more and more prepared. So how do we navigate what's coming next? It's pretty straightforward. As we talked about in the video just a few days ago, getting a map and a compass, we have to start out with the destination, and we've got to start building waypoints along that journey. Whether that's starting out with saying, look, I just want to be ready for a 3-day event. And if there was a disaster, I know I could survive with water, food, medical for 3 days. Over time, I say, look, I want to bump that up to a week, then 3 weeks. Then we start talking about months. And eventually, for some, that might work up to a year. Everybody's got a different destination. Some people are fine with just saying 3 months or 6 months. I can't define that for you, but I would encourage you to define a destination where you want to get to. I'm, again, working on videos behind the scenes to hopefully lay out these realistic waypoints based on time that can be achievable. And look, your waypoints, they're going to need to change the landscape of possible disaster shift. A moment ago, I said, look, no plan survives the first contact. And there will inevitably be changes. There'll be challenges that will come up, but don't allow that to deter you or frustrate you. Take the time now to build a strategy and a direction. And I encourage you, take that time to do it. I used to listen to a motivational speaker years ago named John Maxwell. And one of the things that he always said that impacted me so heavily was, he said, you've got to define your own schedule. If you don't, someone else will define that on your behalf. And I remember that. I do that every week. I sit down before the week starts. I go through my calendar. I mark it down. And I don't leave that open to distractions. Because if you look back in those weeks where you're like, man, I didn't really set a schedule. And I look back and I'm like, shoot, I didn't get anything done. And for me, that's why it's so critical to set that destination in these waypoints. Because if you don't, you'll never achieve it. For me, look, as I mentioned earlier, I envision that we'll, as a society, and again, as a nation, and I'm not just speaking to the United States, but globally this is an issue, is that we're moving through a time like no other. So much upheaval, so much uncertainty, and there's a lot of challenges. And again, I don't want to just flippantly say that, like, oh yeah, we got challenges. I mean, we all do. But in saying that, that's the view and the lens that I look through. And I don't have a fatalistic, pessimistic look. Again, I always try to be as realistic as possible in these things that I see on the horizon. While they concern me, it doesn't frighten me. I'm not an apocalyptic prepper by any stretch of the imagination. I am just someone that I look at what I see coming. I try to be realistic to prepare. For me, I just look at prepping as a higher percentage chance that I can make it through a given scenario. There's no obviously certainty that you'll make it through everything. But I'd like to believe at least that being equipped with the right tools, the skills, the network that I've built around me, and the supplies, my family and I will be in a pretty good position. So what's the next waypoint that you need to reach on your personal journey? Do you need to add more water? Do you need to add more food? Do you need to develop a skill? Are you trying to get land? I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you're working on, what your waypoints are. Feel free to post those in the comments section below, as again, I always love hearing back from the community. If you have any additional thoughts, ideals, anything that would help others that are reading the comments below, feel free to post down below. As always, please stay safe out there.